McLaren's had a nightmare start to the Monaco Grand Prix weekend, which includes picking up a bizarre €30,000 fine in the wake of Lando Norris's FP2 stoppage. Norris suffered an electrical fault that ended his Friday early, but when he stopped his car on track, something else was amiss. McLaren's been fined 30 grand, 10k of which is suspended for 12 months, for covering a button with some tape, something that only emerged because Norris had stopped on track. So John Noble, where do we start with this one?
This is a really interesting one because this has been a weekend of marginal gains, teams trying to find performance with these funny wings we've seen appear here, but this is about a tiny bit of aero tape. So each car has to have a system marshals can activate to disengage the clutch. It's a clutch deactivation system.
Disengagement system.
Disengagement system, what did I say?
Deactivation. It's okay, acronyms are acronyms.
Clutch disengagement system. So if a car stops on track, it's in gear, the marshals have come along and to move it, push the button, disengages it, push it on. Marshals couldn't do this here. The reason was McLaren had put a little bit of tape over it, primarily for aerodynamic reasons. So this tape would basically smooth the airflow, so there's no vortices created, all much better. I mean, the gains must be minimal, but the FI is not happy. They said it negates having this system at all if you put a bit of tape over it. And McLaren, I think, conceded it couldn't be activated without the use of a tool.
But that's what I was going to say. What kind of tape were they using that it could not be removed just by a marshal with a glove pressing a button? It needed a tool to actually take off. And yeah, the CDS is it's the kind of thing that you don't hear about until something like this happens. And it's really weird. You will have probably never have heard about this in the last 10 years of F1. Now we've heard about it 2 weekends in a row. I mentioned earlier, McLaren's fine, only 10 grand of that 30 grand is suspended. We actually had a similar incident involving the CDS with Liam Lawson's Racing Bulls car in Canada, but that had 20k suspended. The FIA said that this one's more severe, didn't they?
Yeah, Racing Bulls had a similar problem in Canada. Liam Lawson had stopped on practice. The system didn't work. And that was a bit more complicated because it involved not having the system working properly as a means of anti-stall and how everything interconnected in the system. This one basically made the system completely redundant. Didn't work at all without a tool. So FIA not happy. And that's why they're a bit more serious.
And off the back of Canada and that penalty, the FIA felt here that the team should have used that as basically recognition that this is serious, the CDS is there to be taken seriously. McLaren basically didn't heed the warning that wasn't just to Racing Bulls, it was to everybody. That was an off-track oddity, shall we say, but it was obviously linked to an on-track problem. Norris stopping early in FP2, compromising McLaren's Friday. One car left running in FP2, that was Oscar Piastri. The problem is the car that was left running wasn't very fast. McLaren came here quietly confident, slow speed corners meant to suit its car. It's nowhere, a second off the pace.
I think what we've seen today, everyone expected Ferrari to be the pace setters, the drivability of that car, the low speed benefits, the smaller turbo, its responsiveness. This was always going to be a good track for Ferrari. I don't think anyone's too surprised they're in front. Maybe the margin, having both cars up there, is. But what seems to happen is everyone else has been pulled back, and especially you look at the Mercedes teams, the power advantage. We know that power unit's powerful. We know they've got decent amounts of energy. It doesn't count for much around here. There's not many long straights. This is an energy-rich circuit, so it's leveled the playing field, basically. It's neutered. The power advantage, how it's been neutered, is put much more emphasis onto chassis, much more emphasis onto tyre preparation, and McLaren have fallen back into a window behind. A Red Bull team that seems to have nailed it, Max Verstappen's on it, seems to have sorted their tyre strategies out, and Ferrari just rolling on.
And McLaren really struggling just for grip, basically, as you say. When it comes down to it now, when it's a pure chassis fight, aero fight, tyre fight, whatever it ends up being, as Oscar Piastri said, it's pretty candid. It's basically not really a specific part of the track they're struggling. They're just lacking grip. They knew that Ferrari would be good here, or suspected Ferrari would be good here. They also thought Merc would be good here as well, but they're surprised to be as far off as they are. So McLaren at the moment need a massive step overnight. Obviously, they also need to get to the bottom of what happened to McLaren. We know it's to Norris. Sorry, we know it's an electrical fault, but they didn't know when we were talking to them. They're going to be digging deep into the car through this evening.
Well, breaking the curfew,
Yes.
actually, is taking it so serious, they don't leave anything to chance. So they've taken the decision to break the curfew tonight. We'll work on it, go through the entire thing to make sure there is no repeat of this.
And that means basically team members staying in the confines of the circuit for hours longer than they normally would and are normally allowed to. You get 4 jokers a season now, isn't it? You get a few jokers a season. We'll leave it at that. It's a late day here in Monaco. So McLaren are nowhere in relative terms, but the Works Mercedes team is a lot closer. That car's happier than the McLaren, but it's still looking a few tenths adrift at the moment.
Yeah, this is coming down by the looks of it to tyre preparation. You've got the power unit advantage is neutered. We're back to traditional strengths of cars. So it's how's the mechanical grip, how's the downforce, and absolutely critical is going to be tyres. The tyres here are a step harder than last year. There's less downforce, they're sliding a lot, it's bumpier. So it's very, very difficult to get the tyres into the right windows. Teams are struggling to fire up the fronts and they get the rears hot. Some teams are doing 2 preparation laps, some are doing 2 push laps. Charles Leclerc did 2 push laps today. Max was trying to do some longer runs for Red Bull. It's a very challenge to get the tyres fired up. Mercedes was finding it could get the start of the lap absolutely nailed, but the rears were getting killed at the end of the lap. So they're trying to adjust things and find things. Tomorrow is going to be about traffic, not finding the right place, getting those front tyres fired up in the final sector, which is actually a place you can't particularly push because the danger is you then trip up some back markers or don't get a gap.
And we saw loads of laps today that probably could have been faster than they were. So if you looked at it on theoretical fastest times, the Ferrari's actually capable of going a couple of attempts quicker than either driver went today. But also George Russell, yes, run out of tyres at the end of his lap, but also had a little bit of traffic. He's a tenth and a half slower than teammate Kimi Antonelli in Sector 3. So the Merc's got a little bit more in it. Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, arguably the only driver who really got the most out of his car or seemed to get close to the most out of his car in FP2 and went about it a different way with lots of consecutive laps, and the Red Bull seemed to be able to do that without overworking the tyres and then get it into that sweet spot. Ferrari, Charles Leclerc said, Ferrari can't do that. So it's going to be really interesting because right now Red Bull is Ferrari's nearest threat, and you'd say that's the fight for pole position and the front row with Mercedes just behind, but it could change tomorrow.
Well, what is interesting is theoretically, Red Bull may think this is the quickest way we can have 2 prep laps, get the front axle and rear axle tyre temperatures all balanced. Beautiful in theory if you've got an empty track. There isn't an empty track tomorrow. We're going to got 22 cars in Q1 tomorrow. You're going to need to try to find gaps. You're going to need to try to deal with traffic coming behind. You need to fire those front tyres up. You can't afford to have 2 push laps here for the dangers of getting trapped. So what's theoretically best, maybe one thing. What you can really do here is another thing. And when you get down to qualifying, they're going to be tripping over each other.
And the actual execution for the driver themselves, even if you've got the tyres there, the car seems to be working, this track's proving so challenging. Exactly what we thought it would be with these cars. The engine, the battery side of things isn't really a factor, but driving these cars is tricky. They've got less downforce than before. They're moving around more than before. They're tricky under brakes. So Leclerc looks quick. I think he's the slightly faster of the 2 Ferrari drivers when everything hooks up here. But he's really struggling to be consistent, and he lacked a bit of confidence on the brakes in FP2. Hamilton a bit happier, but that best time in FP2 still a couple of attempts shy, as I said, of what a Ferrari's capable of if you marry up all of their best sectors. So FP3 is going to be absolutely fascinating as everybody tries to get things dialed in. Then when we get to qualifying proper, there's all sorts of variables that can catch people out.